welcome to a brand spanking new episode of the Partial Historians. I am Dr. Radness.
And I am Dr. Greenfield.
Welcome, Dr. Greenfield. We meet once again.
I know.
This side of 70. Do you feel older?
Look, the wrinkles, they're starting to pop out. You know, do what I can, but there's only so much anti-aging cream can solve.
Well, speaking of age, we are, at the moment, still in the fairly early stages of tracing our journey from the founding of Rome until, well, the collapse, unfortunately.
There's just so much information. I mean,
I know.
Yeah. Look, we're not very far in, let's face it.
We're reveling in the minutiae.
But what minutiae?
But what minutiae, exactly, yeah. Okay, so last time we talked, we were looking at some skirmishes with people like the Hernicans, the Volscians, the Aequians, basically people who were surrounding Roman territory.
All of these people that are in the sort of the east to south surrounding areas of Rome. And
the shoehorn around the piece of the boot.
And just you wait. More of it's to come.
Yeah, so I don't know where you're up to at the moment, but I'm in, I think, around 484, maybe 485, because obviously we're talking rough dates here. But the consulship, where I'm up to, is that of Spurius Cassius and Proculus Verginius.
Okay,
is
yes.
This where you're up to?
Yes. This is the consulship that I'm up to.
Excellent.
I've got it placed at around about 486.
Okay, yeah. So
but these are definitely the guys we're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so listeners, as you know by now, hopefully, because of course you're massive fans, I am following the accounts of Livy, and Dr. G is following the account of Dionysius of Halicarnassus. And basically what Livy tells me at the moment is that after the conflicts of the previous years, the Romans are entering a league with the Hernicans.
Oh, very interesting.
Is there any mention of this made in your account of this year?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's still some issues with the Hernicans as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yes, of course, yeah. Dionysius tends to be far more detailed than Livy.
Yeah. Oh, well, let me set a scene
yes,
for you.
Yes, please do. I always like this because it means I get to kick back and just enjoy the ride.
Proculus Verginius.
Yes.
Congratulations on becoming consul for the first time.
Indeed.
Spurius Cassius, on the other hand, has a bit of an old hat at this job.
He's in for a rocky road as well.
He was consul in 502, consul in 493, and now here again, consul in 486.
He's an old hand.
Roundabout. But yeah, so he's got quite a legacy that he's bringing into this role.
True.
And as perhaps the more senior of the two, Cassius is the one that decides that he will march against the Hernicans and the Volscians.
Fair call.
This year.
Yeah.
Whereas Verginius gets the Aequians, who, you know, they've caused some trouble, but not that much.
They're nowhere near a threat. No.
And Verginius manages to get out of the Aequian situation pretty quickly.
Good for him.
Yeah, because the Aequians have basically fortified their city and removed themselves out of the countryside and just let the Roman army come in and lay waste to it.
Well, okay, that's one way to go about it.
Yeah, so Verginius sweeps in with the Roman forces.
Just lie back and think of Rome.
Pretty much. But not in the countryside. Do it in the city. They let the country houses be set on fire. Verginius ravages with ease through the country, and no one comes out to defend it. And so then he leads his army home, being like, well, that was a successful pillage and plunder.
Well, I think he actually ended up getting the better deal.
Apparently that's what he does this year.
Okay, what about Cassius? How does he fare against...
Look, life is a bit tougher on for Cassius.
Yeah.
The Volscians and the Hernicans are kind of... They're relative neighbours.
Yes,
And they had also, like the Aequians, apparently resolved to allow their land to be laid waste and take refuge in the cities and just be like, sure, pillage away. I'm just going to sit over here and watch you while you do it. But...
build up bitterness.
Yeah. My note on this section of the text is the Volscians basically give up at this point.
Right.
Except...
Ooh. I was going to say, which kind of makes sense because my account said that they were basically in a stalemate by this stage.
Yeah, pretty much. But unlike the Aequians, the Volscians decide to send some envoys to Rome. And they sue for a termination of the war.
Right, yeah.
They're like, look, please let this be done. We're so sorry. We're really over this.
Hasta la vista, baby.
They're like, please, can we have some peace?
Yeah.
And the consuls are like, yeah, that'd be great. You just need to pay some money to us.
Rome. They're never satisfied with just peace.
Yeah. We need some stuff for our army, obviously, so it'd be good if you could fit us out with stuff.
Yeah.
And the Volscians are like, yes, I mean, just take whatever you need, man. We just want this to be over with. And they agree to become the subjects to Rome without making any further claims to equality.
Wow, that's quite a concession they're making there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence my note, basically giving up.
Yeah. Score one Rome.
So Rome is like, okay, yes, obviously. I mean, we always knew you weren't
Of course,
equal,
yeah. We don't need you to tell us that, but still, it's nice to hear.
Yeah. It's nice that you put it into words.
Yeah.
Thank you for bowing down before our majesty. The Hernicans on the other side start to realize that they've been isolated. And they're like, wait a minute, the Aequians have basically given up.
Yeah.
The Volscians have just given up. The Volscians, guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do we do? And they're like, they also approach the consul.
Right,
and
yeah.
they sue for peace and friendship.
Yes. That's pretty much where I'm up to, yeah.
Which is nice, except Cassius is kind of like, I think you guys are arrogant. He's like, I don't like the way you've sued for this peace. He's like, you should...
Well, isn't that the pot calling the kettle black?
Yeah, pretty much. Just you wait.
Yeah.
There's some mad foreshadowing in this narrative.
Excellent.
And he's like, look, you guys need to first act like men who have been conquered and act like subjects of Rome. And when you bow down before us, do that first, act like you're conquered, and then sue for friendship.
Right, so he doesn't like the way they kind of walk in and going, hey,
How about some peace and friendship? How about some peace and friendship? And
let's sit down to dinner and can you pass me the peas?
yeah, and this kind of makes sense. I think Cassius's response makes sense in...
Yeah, ancient world context.
Well, in an ancient world context, but also because of the really brief navigation of relationships between Rome and the Hernicans in the last couple of years.
True,
because Rome approached them and was like, what up, we're friends, you owe us stuff.
Yeah.
They're calling in the treaty.
Yeah.
And the Hernicans like, what treaty?
Yeah. And Romans were like, what?
Excuse me?
You should have been checking in with us, Rome. Since you last deigned to speak to us, we found something else.
Yeah.
It's called self-respect.
Rome wasn't very pleased.
No.
And so Rome has been in this situation where they're like, we thought we had a treaty.
Yeah.
You've disrespected that.
True, I understand. But it ends up badly for the Hernicans either way, because according to my account, when the Hernicans make this deal with the Romans, they end up losing 2/3 of their territory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, is that the same? Is that mentioned in yours?
Yeah, look, I mean, not particularly. I mean, there are some things that go around.
Right, yeah.
So Cassius orders the Hernicans to pay what would be equivalent to the 6-month salary for each soldier.
Whoa! That's a lot.
Yeah. As well as provision for 2 months for each of them.
Can they really afford that?
Yeah. He's basically saying, I want you to underwrite and support the Roman army. All of my soldiers. I want them to be paid for 6 months, and I need 2 months worth of provisions.
It's a legal case these days, whether you have to pay the cost of the losing team.
The old reparations moment.
Yeah.
And he gives them a deadline in which to be able to pay up on that.
Yeah.
And the Hernicans are like, sure. They agree to that.
Accommodating of them. Yeah.
Yeah, because they then sue immediately after that for friendship again.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, okay, that's how you want us to abase ourselves? All right. How about friendship?
Consider us abased.
Does this payment satisfy you?
It always sounds particularly sweet when you talk about it in these sorts of terms, doesn't it? It's like, I'll give you my friendship.
I'll be friends with you if you pay me all of your money and give me all of your food. Okay.
The Romans are Regina George.
Literally the worst.
Yeah.
So Cassius is negotiating this, and he's like, look, I see what you've done there. That's very nice. Let me talk to the Senate and get something formal organized.
Sure.
And the Senate agrees to receive the Hernicans into friendship.
How graceful.
And they also allow Cassius to decide the terms of that treaty.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So that's quite interesting because he does decide the terms of that treaty, and then the Senate's very upset.
Okay, now I'm curious to ask you why the Senate are upset, because Cassius also, in my narrative, the Senate gets offside, basically, because of what he does. I don't know if it's exactly the terms of the treaty, though, that upsets them, so please, tell me why they're upset with him.
There are a couple of reasons.
Okay.
Cassius returns to Rome and demands a second triumph.
Ooh, okay, well, that's just greedy.
And gets it.
Oh.
He's like, I've, killed people before, those Sabines,
What?
remember them?
A triumph. Oh, okay, because there was some conflict, okay. I was going to say because of deciding the treaty or something. But
he demands a second triumph as if he literally subdued the Hernicans
I was
in
going to
battle.
say, yeah. Okay.
Even though he's basically just
greedy.
extorted them.
That is greedy, yeah.
Yeah. So that gets them upset.
Fair enough, yeah. I'm on the side of the Senate. This feels unnatural.
Dionysius describes it as Cassius gaining a reputation for presumption and for no longer entertaining thoughts like those of his fellow citizens.
Ooh.
Dude, going off script.
Individual thought.
Like, who gets a triumph for doing nothing?
Must destroy.
Yeah, so a problem.
Yes.
And then they get really angsty about the treaty that he makes with the Hernicans because it's essentially just a copy of the one that has been made with the Latins.
Lazy. Copy and paste. Don't gonna plagiarize, guys.
They're like, yo, scribe, copy down that one.
Just substitute Latin for Hernicans.
Yeah. This becomes a real issue. So, because the Latins are considered to be...
On a higher level.
A familial race.
Yes.
They speak the same language group.
Yeah.
The Hernicans actually belong to a different language category. They
I
are
imagine
considered...
their religion is possibly a bit different too.
Yeah, they're classified as a different peoples.
Right.
And not a kinsman of the Romans like
Breaking
the Latins are.
ethnic ranks.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Yeah. Look, and this is how you make a Senate angry.
Yeah. Particularly Roman Senate.
So they're displeased because they see this treaty, this copy, as another sign of his arrogance. Because he's just done something according to his own pleasure.
Yeah.
And he hasn't...
I imagine the Latins aren't too pleased about this either. Because they want the special treatment.
Well, the Latins have some level of special treatment at this point.
No,
and it's basically being diluted.
That's what I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like, everybody can join my secret club. Except it's not so special.
What about those guys over there?
Yeah.
Who are those guys?
Yeah.
They jump the queue.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, so...
Wow, okay, well, see, I don't know whether you've got this, because this is not, as I say, it's not exactly the terms of the treaty, but it's what he does with... It's what he does with the gains, I suppose, of the deal they strike in Livy that upsets the Senate. And I don't know whether you're going to go on to this or not. Essentially, in Livy, so he gets, they get 2/3 of the lands of the Hernicans. It's part of their deal, okay, when peace is decided upon. Then Cassius has decided that he wants to distribute half of this 2/3 amongst the Latin people. So like a gifty sort of thing, I suppose. And the other half he wants to give to the commons. As in the plebs. Okay, and this sort of links back into our overarching theme of the last while of the conflict between the patricians and the plebeians. He's trying to sort of win them over, basically, by giving them what they want, which is, land so they can get out of debt and all that kind of stuff. Do you have anything like that in your...
I do. Oh, yes.
Dionysius really has. Leslie Sue South Olivia has.
Excellent. Yes.
So what does Dionysius have to say about this whole situation?
Yeah, so Dionysius leads into this by actually inserting, his opinion into the narrative.
About the deal, about what he's doing with...
Yeah, he starts to make some comment on Cassius before proceeding with this narrative, which leads to this sort of populist politics coming into play.
Exactly, yeah.
It seems that to be successful in many undertakings is a dangerous and prejudicial thing for a man. For to many it is the hidden source of senseless pride and the secret author of desires that are too ambitious for our human nature. Ooh. And so it was with Cassius.
Burn.
Yeah. So... Not only had he had 3 consulships and 2 triumphs, he now appears, as far as the Senate is concerned, to conceive a desire for monarchical power.
Oh,
and there is nothing like a desire for monarchical power to get a Senate offside.
Yeah, because again, to put it in context, because we're in the 480s, mid-480s, although we've been doing many, many episodes, the monarchy's still it's not even been half a century really since the monarchy's gone. Like,
People still remember.
Yeah, we're getting to that point.
It's about a generation ago, but a lot of people are going to still be alive.
Totally, yeah. Exactly.
A lot of the players are still on the board.
And in my account, it's not just that he's planning to divide this territory between the Latins and the plebeian people, but he's also planning to, as like not a bonus, I suppose, but to add insult to injury, perhaps, he's also planning to give a lot of land which is technically meant to be owned by the common people, which has been occupied by private people, i.e. patricians. He's planning on giving that back to them. It's really, turning everything around.
Oh, yeah.
Head.
So he's taking this populist position and being like, so he goes out and as part of his process for having a triumph, he gets to call the people together.
Right.
And talk about, the things that he's achieved.
Sure.
And he talks about his past claims to fame.
Mm-hmm.
He defeated the Sabines when he was the consul in 502.
This is what Romans tend to do, by the way, like when they're trying to get something out of people. They really go through their past history and say, look at all the awesome things I did.
I've done a lot of awesome things, guys. Remember when I was consul for the second time in 493? It was the struggle of the orders, and I helped resolve that situation with the Sacred Mount.
Yep.
And everybody's like, what? Because
we like to forget that.
Because none of the historians really talk about his role there. So he's kind of like doing a little bit of the, remember that time? And everyone's like, you did nothing, dude.
Get out of here.
He's like, remember that time that I got the Latins to become our friends with equal rights of citizenship? And the Senate's like, and then you like copied and pasted the treaty. He's like, but remember that time.
Nothing but a plagiarist,
And he's like, and then remember like what I've just achieved now in 486 in my third consulship. I've drawn in the Volscians and the Hernicans, and they've become our friends as well. And he's like, I've achieved a lot, guys. I'm bringing a lot to the table here. And
so, this is what I want.
And so he does this in public as part of his triumph.
Sure, yeah.
And everyone's like, woo, what a dude. And then he goes into the Senate and has a meeting with them. And this is when he does the old switcheroo. And he's like, so I've been working on my popular support outside. Don't know if you've noticed. Had my second triumph.
Pretty popular, guys. FYI.
At the moment, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Don't know if you noticed. And then he's like, okay, so there are a couple of things that we want to do here.
Right, yeah.
And I think you're going to agree. And he's like...
Naive.
So, that land, and that conquered territory, that is supposed to be the common land, currently occupied mostly by patricians, I would like to return that to common land.
Yeah.
And not only that, because it's conquered land, I'd like to divide it equally amongst all of the citizens. Oh boy.
I can feel a bead of sweat forming on my forehead, so I'm feeling what the senators would be feeling.
And it's like, you're patricians, and you don't have any legal claim to that conquered land, because you are not the guys who conquered it.
Yeah, and
it is the plebeians, the soldiers on the ground who conquered that land.
Exactly.
And they deserve a piece of it.
Which is just unheard of class betrayal as far as the senators are concerned.
Yeah.
This is exactly the kind of stuff that they've been trying to fend off whenever the plebeians or the tribunes have brought it up, going, what are you talking about? We're the stomach, guys. Don't you remember? In the body, you guys are like the hands and the feet. We're the stomach. We redistribute.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to take a moment to make a analogy that's only relevant to current Australian politics and be like, it's very much like the Conservative government that we have in this country.
It is indeed,
who is not interested in reforming housing policy to help any generation
really
except the wealthy.
Yeah, exactly. Or really any system, education
Surprise.
or health.
And anybody who goes in there and says, maybe the people should have a piece of that, they're like, no.
It's ours. I plan to keep it.
I own it all, and you're not having any of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, good times. Everybody likes a government.
Yeah. Now, Livy actually flags this instance as being the first attempt in Roman history to pass an agrarian law.
This is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is comparable to the sort of stuff that we start to see later on coming through under some more famous characters from the later Republic.
Well, that's exactly it. Like Livy, just to remind you, is writing about, hang on, let me think, about 400 years after... No, that's not...
Yeah.
Not even.
He's writing in the very late Republic, in the 1st century BC.
Yeah, so quite a few centuries after all this is meant to be taking place. And so by his day, attempts to pass the agrarian laws are legendarily bad ideas. Stuff happens, It's pretty tumultuous times in Rome whenever this is...
Whatever you do, don't give the plebeians the grain.
No. Or land to grow grain.
No.
It's a bad idea.
No. Once they have that, they have everything.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Livy is obviously looking back and going, yeah, this is a significant thing because this has become such a problematic sore point. And look, it probably was, I'm not saying it wasn't back then as well, but particularly for someone writing with Livy's hindsight, I feel like any attempts like this way back when Rome was so tiny, teeny, and wouldn't have had as much territory, still big deal.
Yeah, and I think Livy's perspective on this is pretty interesting because it's certainly not the tactic that Dionysius, writing as a Greek for a predominantly Greek audience, has taken at all.
Please
he kind of just narrates it as like more stuff, water under the bridge.
Well, that's, I think, exactly. Being obviously a Roman, writing for a Roman audience, Livy is very much like, yeah, guys, you know that stuff that happened like 100 years ago that was really problematic? Well, take a look at this.
Red flag. Yeah. Red flag. We see signs of this earlier in history.
Precisely.
Yeah, whereas Dionysius is much more interested in interjecting his perspective into the moral character and the moral fibre of what Cassius is as a person.
How interesting.
Yeah. And then he's kind of just like, well, here is the details of what he did, but I think he's compromised. Because he also talks about the corn that they've gotten and purchased from Sicily.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, look, this corn just keeps coming back. Yeah. I love it. I'm like,
wait.
It hasn't been regurgitated.
Oh, good. Wait a second.
But I love the way that the corn from Sicily keeps coming back into the narrative at certain points. And he's like, that corn that we bought from Sicily?
Yeah.
And
we even make shirts. I think we should have like a hashtag corn from Sicily.
And that we used to, and that we were forcing the citizens to purchase.
I remember that, yes.
Yeah. Yes. That corn we need to buy back. We need to repay the citizens because they should have gotten that corn for free.
Whoa.
We need to take money out of the public treasury, the spoils that we've gotten from war.
That's really interesting.
And repay people because they should not have had to pay for that grain because what we did with those bodies that ate that grain was send them back into war.
That's crazy progressive.
This is a guy who is like, I'm just going to do the flip on you.
Yeah. Well,
I see the tide of where the people are.
Yeah.
And I see you small people in the Senate House, and I think you're not going to last long in front of this rabble.
Well, yeah, the patricians are suitably alarmed by his proposals in my account. And no shock here. Proculus Verginius, his colleague in the consulship, is completely against this motion. So
oh, come on, Verginius, get with the people.
The big cheese stands alone. Apparently, okay, this is interesting. I don't know whether you've got this. Apparently, according to Livy, even some of the common people were against this motion. Not because they think, oh, come on, don't be too harsh to the patricians. But because it's shared with the allies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting because as far as Dionysius' narrative is concerned, he doesn't make it about the allies necessarily.
Yeah.
But if you read between the lines, he does talk about all the citizens.
Right.
So when Cassius is saying, I think this land should be divided between the citizens, the plebeians, and I think this grain should be repaid, the purchase of it should be repaid to the citizens.
Yes.
Obviously the citizens who are having the grain payments made to them would be the ones who are probably the Latins. And the Romans, but the people who are going to benefit from the divvying up of the land are going to be the Hernicans and the Volscians who've just been brought into the fold with citizenship rights.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, so that's including them as well.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, okay,
so,
fair enough. Yeah.
So what Cassius is doing is like, I've got the Volscians behind me.
Yes.
I've got the Hernicans behind me.
Yes.
And I'm about to flip the tables on everybody by actually making a play for some advantages for these citizens.
Yeah. Which is going to make him popular. Yeah.
He's like, not only have I brought them into the fold, with my treaty that's a mirror to the Latin treaty, I've got every right to do this. I'm actually going to cement my popularity with those new citizens by giving them some of the land back that we conquered.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense because what Livy's exact words on this note are, well, sorry, not his exact words because they'd be Latin, but you know what I mean. They began to despise a gift, they being the common people, which was not confined to themselves, but extended to allies in common with the citizens. So yeah, I guess if you define those terms that they're throwing around, that makes a lot more sense. And let's face it, I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but after looking at all the struggle of the order stuff that we've been talking about for episodes and episodes, something like this needed to be done. And this is what the patricians should have done a long time ago if they were just to put peace as their priority. But of course, no.
No.
Yeah. Peace is never the priority.
I'm a patrician.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What I'm interested in is my own power base, and that means not sharing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, monopoly. Yeah. Okay, wow. Right, so how do things play out for Cassius in your account?
Well, that's kind of where I'm up to in terms of where I've read up to. So the only other part that I can add in at this stage is that we've got this sort of moment, not only is Verginius violently against these proposals, so the co-consul is like, no, none of that, but everybody's old friend, Appius Claudius, also gets up and is like, this is a terrible idea, which is no surprise to anybody. But then Cassius sort of goes out and continues to call assemblies with the populace to try and push his perspective.
Right, okay.
So he is having some sort of struggle with winning over the people in the city. Okay. He has to keep calling them back and be like, this is a good idea, you will benefit. You're not the only ones who...
It's bizarre that they couldn't see that.
It's like, you're going to get something out of this. And then slagging off all of his opponents.
Right, yeah.
So Verginius cops a lot.
Yeah, well, see, Verginius... I mean, this is, I think, hinting at what you alluded to earlier about the whole he's aiming for monarchy sort of thing. Because essentially, Verginius, in Livy's account, who I think is voicing their concerns, talks about how anybody who takes this gift of land is essentially going to end up a slave. And I think that's because he means obviously like a slave to Cassius, like a slave, because Cassius is doing this in order to gain so much power and leeway over people. And so I think he is hinting at that.
Think of all the clients he'll acquire.
Well, exactly it. He says, the fact that Cassius is scheming for such power is indicated by the fact that the Latins are included in this deal. That is the sure sign, as far as Verginius is concerned, that this is what he's aiming at. And Cassius is even likened to Coriolanus. Whoa! Burn, baby, burn. Disco and burn.
Oh, man.
Yeah, in the sense of, as you sort of alluded to, the fact that the Hernicans are included in this deal, like he feels like that's a thing that Coriolanus would do. And in terms of, trying to...
The old, if I can't have the Romans on side, I'll get the allies on side.
Yeah, exactly, So that's,
He's setting things up for a flipperoo where he's like, you know what, I'm going to the Hernicans, I'll lead their forces, I'll show you who's boss, I'll come back with my allies.
And I've got to say, I actually find, I have to admit, I've never really come across this particular Cassius before, as in, I know we've talked about him, but I've never, when I was studying before doing this podcast, he wasn't a significant figure in Roman history, but I find him fascinating.
Yes, very, very curious.
I know.
Let's observe him in his natural habitat.
All right, so if we're going to wind up there, that means, Dr. G, it is time for our partial pick of the episode.
Partial pick.
Yes, our new segment where we get to rate the Roman performance on various categories.
Out of 10 eagles in each category.
Indeed.
How does Cassius fare?
Okay, so our first category is military clout, Dr. G. How do you feel about their performance so far this episode?
Look, both Verginius and Cassius do pretty good.
It's true.
Yeah. They basically wade into lands which are severely undefended.
Yep.
Pillage, take plunder, and go home and be like, how's
Yeah. Ultimate submission.
Yeah, and they're kind of like, well, we did the thing.
Yes, I agree.
Military clout, I'm giving them, for what they've attempted, 10 sweet eagles.
Really? Okay, see, I still feel like I can't quite go all the way with this. I feel like I'm going to... Because, it's not like an all-out, let's salt the land. And I think I'm going to give them an 8.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's compromise. It's a 9 out of 10
Fair
eagles
enough.
for military clout.
Nice. Next category is diplomacy. This is an interesting one. Do we mean internal or external?
Look, I feel like the external diplomacy has gone pretty well from Cassius' perspective. He's
I agree.
I got a cut and paste document for you to sign. Just put your next here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You now
Initial here, and we're done.
And you're a citizen now.
That's right. Congratulations, it's a pleasure doing business with you.
Welcome to Rome.
I'll send Maggie over with the paperwork and molly.
On the other hand,
yes,
this is the kind of deal that doesn't go well with internal politics.
No.
So if we're thinking about, are you keeping your Senate happy? Are people pleased with you?
Yeah.
And I think that takes some eagles off.
I agree. I feel like it has to be maybe a 7 for me for this one.
Win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
You know, if Appius Claudius isn't happy, nobody's happy.
That's right. You will make sure that nobody else is happy. All right. So what about expansion?
Well,
there has been some expansion.
Yeah. I mean, do you gain the territory if people are brought in with citizenship?
I feel like it counts. It's still expanding the Roman sphere of influence, if you will. If
certainly.
Rome itself.
Yes,
Yeah.
So, I'm going to give them maybe a 6.
Yeah.
I don't think they've done anything grand, but they haven't gone backwards,
No,
that's for sure.
I think a 6 is good. Yeah.
Something's gone all right.
Exactly, yeah. Now, Virtus. Now, this is going to be tough.
The old Virtus.
Yeah.
How manly has Cassius been?
He's pretty ballsy. Okay? given the conflict that we have seen prior to this episode, with the whole clash between patricians, plebeians, like how seriously everybody seems to take it, understandably, don't get me wrong. It's pretty ballsy move to like just flip around on the patricians, but it's not traditional Roman values.
I was going to say, this is not traditional Virtus, is it?
No.
That would be a type of...
This is sort of almost, as you say, it is like sort of populism.
It is. And I don't know
I
if
feel like
that
that's become a dirty word with Donald Trump in power at the moment.
It certainly doesn't get to count as Virtus.
Yeah.
If we're talking about courage and bravery in the field,
yes,
definitely yes.
True.
Cassius gets some points from that, as does Verginius.
Maybe
so
6?
Yeah, so I'm saying it has to be above 5, but I'm not rating it very highly.
Yeah, I think we have to go with 6.
The Romans aren't super pleased with it, so
no.
They always like a good Virtus moment.
Yeah,
but I don't think they're getting one right now.
For once, I'm actually a little bit disappointed in the plebs' performance as well.
Have the plebs done anything?
Well, no,
I think they've complained a lot.
The fact that they really need, well, apparently anyway, the fact that they kind of need it to be spelled out for them that this would be a good thing. It's progress. It's some sort of progress.
I can see that how they would see it as a problem.
I guess, but still, I feel like it's better than what they've had before, which is basically a kick in the teeth.
Guys, we're going to pay for that grain. Woohoo!
Well, they've had nothing but endless promises up till now. So, anyway, but... Yeah.
Well, it's not at all clear that they've followed through on any of these promises yet anyway.
Well, this is true.
Cassius has proposed them.
This is true. Okay.
So, final category.
Citizen score.
Is it a good time to be a Roman living in Rome?
If there's still warfare going on, I still feel like it'd be tough for the actual everyday man on the ground and woman on the ground.
Yes.
Child on the ground, whatever.
Child on the ground, child in the ground.
I feel like it probably is a 4.
There's still the possibility of getting a bit of land, though.
True, that's true. Maybe a 5?
Maybe a 5.
Okay.
All right,
so let's do
marks for the citizens.
Yeah, that's right. So let's see. What have we got here in terms of our ultimate score out of 50 eagles?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I'm good at mathematics on the spot.
So you got 12, 17, 24. We have got, oh my god, 33.
My goodness.
That's a bit of an improvement from last time.
33 out of 50.
Yeah.
Oh, Rome, you have surpassed yourself. This is a big step up episode-wise.
Well done, Rome.
We've gone from a fail to a you might make it with a bare pass.
Yeah, that's right. You're a solid C student, Rome. Well done.
I'm calling this episode satisfactory.
That's right. Join us next time. Find out what happens to Cassius. Does he get lynched in the town square?
Do the plebs get their land?
That's right.
Are they given some money to pay for that grain?
Find out next time.